Hello and welcome to another super exciting episode of Pitch Cafe Podcast. This is a place where talent meets coffee. This was a show started where Silicon Valley investors were roasting, toasting, and boosting startup founders. Today, our startup founder is all about boosting human potential with creativity. She is hitting that nerve, that chord which resonates with every human being on the planet. Creativity is the source of life, and our guest today, Deepa Vivekanandan, is all in to make this a part of everyone's life. Our guest, Deepa Vivekanandan, has lots of big brands on her resume. She has worked at Google, she has been part of YouTube, she's from Carnegie Mellon, and she has worked for IIT Madras. So both from the Indian and the US landscape, she has some of the biggest brand names on her resume. But for me, most importantly, she's my alumnus friend. She's from PS Institute of Technology, Bengaluru. And I'm so proud that one of my college mates is serving humanity through her startup, MixLife. What is MixLife and why is it today the topic of our discussion? Let's find out more from the horse's mouth. Welcome, Deepa. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Vida. Thanks so much for having me here, and thanks for that introduction.
Fantastic. So, Deepa, we would like to know more about why you quit your full-time job, like this hot, short job everybody dreams about, and you took up MixLife. What was the why behind this whole big transition you've made?
Yeah, definitely. So as Vida mentioned, I was at Google and YouTube. I was working as a product manager back in 2018, and something that happened in my own life made me think back and reprioritize. So I had a very narrow escape that happened, the shooting that happened on YouTube campus in 2018. I experienced PTSD and I recovered from PTSD through creativity. Creativity played a pivotal role in my recovery, along with other efforts too, like from my therapist and so on. But creativity was a pivotal part of like my own recovery process. And that experience really made me think about creativity's role. And it also got me interested in learning about the research behind creativity and mental well-being. And what I found out was quite surprising that it can, not just help in recovery from trauma, such as I experienced, but also help with, building resilience for dealing with everyday stress and even helping, overcome this feeling of languishing where you feel like you're getting through every day, but you're not really excited, you're not really thriving. So it seemed like this very, powerful and very fun way to package such well-being benefits to the human mind and brain. So that's kind of what got me excited, and I jumped on this journey to build MixLife. So MixLife, and MixLife, it's the startup which is focused on really leveraging creativity for mental well-being, and really trying to integrate creativity into everybody's lives. And our values and philosophy are around it's not just for the artists, and if anyone has been told that they're not creative, they're not artistic, that's not true. It's innate in all of us are creative, all of us are capable of being creative, and really leveraging that superpower for our well-being is one of our core values at MixLife.
Yeah, amazing. So what stood out to me from your current experience is connecting with the outer world by sharing with them who you are, right? This is a very broad topic. It's about self-realization. So you are helping people to realize themselves through creativity. Another thing is building trust. They say business happens at the speed of trust. So building trust. Now, can you give a few examples how you help people express themselves? You said woodwork and canvas. Let's say you were to do a workshop, or if somebody signs up for a MixLife service, what is it that you help them with to express themselves? And what do you see before and after?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can take a few examples of offerings that we have been able to provide at MixLife, and the what people have experienced and have reported having experienced. So take the example of improv, right? Like we've offered an improv journey. What we saw people tell us was they experienced a increase in confidence and self-expression and really being comfortable in their own skin, right? And I think that was a very big takeaway, because as people kind of build over a period of time, over a period of 4 to 6 weeks, what happens is people gradually start beginning to express themselves confidently, and then not be as conscious, and eventually start enjoying that process of being a fool in front of other people is so much fun, right? In improv. So I think just really getting comfortable with that, and then in the process really experiencing these benefits. And something that we've done, we've seen in our pilots where we looked at well-being outcomes of participants. We saw in our early pilots that people experienced a strong sense of improvement in well-being outcomes, be it in reduction in stress levels, or strong sense of connection, or even like experiencing as I mentioned, confidence and self-expression. So those are some examples of outcomes that we saw even while people were just having fun every week, right? And really expressing themselves. So that's an example with improv, and we've seen that happen with poetry too, because I think poetry is also very, it's very it's kind of this journey where you reflect a lot. You're really thinking deeply, and then putting your thoughts into words. And I thought that was a great experience for me. I took the journey myself, and I would tie it to a certain habit. Like every morning with my coffee, I'd write a couple of lines of poetry, and it was such a powerful process in just feeling like I've expressed myself. I feel like I've told the world who I am. So I think poetry is another example. And then we've done ukulele, where people have, picked up this instrument and learned to play it. And there's just so much magic in music. And we've also had people jam, sometimes over Zoom, sometimes in person. But like this idea of like a lot of people coming together and creating music, and then when you hear that outcome, I think there's something so magical about it. So I think, I think we've done a bunch of these journeys: the poetry, improv, stand-up comedy, where people actually do their own stand-up comedy scripts, and then ukulele, as I mentioned. Watercolor was another one. Yeah.
Expressions of human mind and human soul, whatever you listed just now. And we're doing it for the sake of art and not for earning money right now. So it's completely free expression without boundless. So that's great. I have a feeling this will raise the vibration of people who are going into depression. So on that note, how did this help you during your PTSD? Like, what change did you see in yourself? I know you said you became more confident, but can you quote like one specific instance to validate that particular statement?
I think just like evidence-wise, right? Like my medical leave could be cut short in half, and that was just like a very tangible thing that I saw. And like what I personally experienced was, as I mentioned, when I was going through like the more challenging phases of PTSD, I think those moments when I was dancing was the only time I could be in the moment. Like that was almost the only time I could not have to worry about something related to like my unfortunate incident. So I think that was very important for me to get that mental break. And other thing I started noticing was like sleeping better, because one of the biggest challenges with PTSD is sleep, right? Being very disturbed. So those are things that I observed, and I began to understand that these two were correlated, right? Like when I danced, I was feeling better. And then, as I mentioned, like I think as I, with dance and also other creative pursuits, as I started like taking some other classes, I realized that during the pursuit of that medium, I felt comfortable with other people around me, and that was a very important barrier for me to overcome, to kind of feel comfortable with strangers, right? So I think those are specific examples from my own journey where creativity played a very important role. But as I read about the neuroscience and other research, I think what's said is that like creativity actually helps your brain form new neural connections, which is very important in overcoming trauma in particular, because otherwise you're like stuck in a loop, which you're not able to, even no matter how much you wish for it, it doesn't break on its own, right? So I think that really resonated with me, because I could see, I saw something that I couldn't explain happening, and I think that's what the science is kind of telling too. So I think it definitely resonated with me.
Thank you, Deepa. I think you gave such clear expression of the words creativity, about self-expression, about overcoming negative states of depression. This is like a real eye-opener, and you've validated it using a scientific explanation. So great. And I don't think art can be underrated at all after what you've just explained. Not only just for you, you're doing it for groups. So tell me, how does this mixed life approach help people with burnout? This is like the top topic everybody is facing, especially during the pandemic, with the Zoom, endless calls, and with families living inside the house, not being able to go out. They're just juggling with so many things, and most of this is mental pressure. A pandemic was just like a concept. It was a mental concept that you can't go out of four walls, but mentally you're free to do a lot of things. There is a lot of freedom still. How did you address burnout, yourself, or with the tools? You're a mom, and you're a woman entrepreneur. I can't imagine how many challenges you go through every day, but really, how does it help burnout?
Yeah, great question. So I think we're trying to address burnout, taking different angles here, right? Like, one is, as I mentioned, the sense of connection. So there's a lot of recent research pointing to especially during the pandemic, a lot of people are burning out, and it's not just work exhaustion, it's also because of loneliness. Like, it's a big contributor to losing coping mechanisms to deal with stress, and that's when people burn out. So really bringing back some of these coping mechanisms that we've lost out through the mixed life approach. And one way we do it is, as I mentioned, there's a community, there's a group of people going through a similar creative journey, and then that itself creates a sense of connection, because you're on a similar journey and you're exploring and you're cheering each other, you're experiencing similar challenges. And the other is, as I mentioned, some creative practice every day in itself is great for you. It's great for your brain. It really helps you build resilience, and that's why we come in this. I think we're really trying to make creativity a habit. So really helping people take those 5 minutes or 10 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be big, but it has to be something you do more consistently, which is helpful. So that's the other piece, make creativity a habit, create the sense of connection was the other thing I mentioned. And I think the third way we're tackling it is through our instructors and the kind of materials that we provide during our courses is really trying to address, help people reflect on what comes in the way very often, right? I think perfectionism is one big challenge for a lot of us, and it shows up not just in work. Very often, you're not happy with what you've done, and it really creates a lot of stress. And it also shows up when you're being creative, which is you feel it's just not good enough, right, to share, or it's just not good enough to be done. And
so Deepa, I want to ask you one question here. I'm a mom. I'm mom of a 9-year-old. I have this compulsive desire to correct my daughter because she gets some of the proportions wrong, and her concept of size is not appropriate like her classmates. She minimizes things which are supposed to be maximized, and the other way around. It kind of bothers me. What should people like me tell a 9-year-old? What do you think your mixed life approach would tell people, moms like me?
We haven't looked at parent to child, but I think it would start with you, right? If you were to take a class of mixed life, I think it would just be starting with reflection, right? Why are you, frustrated? Why do you think this isn't good enough? And very often the answer is it's just not up to the mark. And I think the point we're trying to make is it doesn't matter, right? I think the idea of getting something done and making progress gradually but consistently, I think that's more important than getting that perfect piece out. And starting with this creative project, which is a very it's a very it's not like something that at work which is burning, right? Like you're starting with something that is easy and something that, even if you mess up is fine. So really starting with like this art project or creative project and teaching yourself to let go is very begin, and then using that as a medium to reflect broadly on life and work and everything else is kind of the third sort of pillar in our approach to tackle burnout, because the things that come up at work are also show up when you're trying to be creative and produce something. So I think that's kind of the third way for us to tackle it, and that's what we put a lot of thought into the curriculum and how we approach this creative journey.
Fantastic. So what's next for MixLife? What are you guys up to there? You have a super exciting program to kindle creativity, and I believe you're with the corporate segment right now, working professionals. So what's next for you? What's next for MixLife?
Yeah, so we started off as a B2C offering, and we've pivoted since to more B2B. So I think our next on our radar is really doing a bunch of pilots with big companies. We're starting with a bunch of the big names here, and then rolling out to more and more employees is kind of our strategy. So we're going to start there. And then when we think of employees, we're not just thinking of them as a small unit within companies, but we're really thinking of them of their life as a whole, right? Like and integrating creativity into their lives and really helping it for their well-being. So as an example, like a lot of these employees are also parents of young kids, and something that often comes up is, hey, I'm not able to take time off for my creative hobby because I'm busy with my kids. And something we try to do is like, here are some modules that you can do with your child, right? And it's great for your kids and it's great for you. So I think really thinking of them as individuals.
I'm going to sign up. I'll be one of the first people to sign up. I'm really looking forward. And when I host play dates, parents ask, did they waste time or did they do anything useful at all? All the 5-6 hours they were with you, at least something, did you do something useful? So I would love to sign up for one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's why there's really thinking about them, their lives, and where, what could be sort of barriers to them practicing and really addressing them. And I think that's kind of our plan right now. So for the next 6 months or so, it's really trying to broaden and roll out our offering.
Yeah. So among the last few questions, I know you're busy, I have to let you go. How do you get a corporate employee to do something creative? They're so fixated on, I was working with this product manager, I was coaching her, and she was dealing with a toxic workplace, and I had to really convince her to do something which made her feel good, like self-love kind of thing. And she would always end up, like you mentioned earlier in the podcast, going back into the loop of how her manager is treating her badly and, being partial to another colleague. She would always come back to that. And I had to shift her and I say, hey, look, you're a beautiful painter. What did you do today? How do you get them on a daily basis to do that? What is a good way to motivate?
Yeah, I think this is one of the key challenges that we'll have is in keeping them engaged. And I think of it as two-pronged. One is like a two-pronged approach to address this. The first is like education, which is like very often, like I've seen, like as I talk to corporate employees, they're very surprised by the benefits of creativity. And as you've seen, like in the fitness world, there's been a revolution, right? Like if you look at the 80s versus 90s versus like this, century, like there's just a lot more awareness about why exercise is good for you. And you don't have to be an athlete, but you have to exercise, right? So similarly, you don't have to be an artist, but being creative is good for you. I think there's that room for education around like what are the benefits, and that's like the first strategy in terms of getting people engaged. And also really helping them see that it's not just for them, it's for everybody around them. So when they're being creative, they're really making themselves more available for everyone around. So it's not a selfish act. Self-care is not selfish, right? So it's something to keep iterating.
I like that. Self-care is not selfish. It's going to make things better around for everyone. All right, I'm going to quote this as your quote, and I'm going to highlight this again and again in the podcast. All you viewers, please remember that self-care and self-love is not selfish. It is being selfless by making things better around you. Thank you for that. Yeah, and you were saying
So the education is one piece, and then the other is engagement. I think one nice thing about creativity is that you see your other colleagues, you see other people at your workplace expressing themselves, right? And that's a big motivator too, because people want to see what others created, and then when you see others create, you want to create too. So I think that's just like a very fun piece to creativity, where you want to see what others have come up with. So I think that we've seen even in the past, like even in our B2C offerings, we've seen that drive a lot of engagement. And then finding key moments, right, like where this can really integrate into their lives. I think that's very important as a strategy too for us. So I think those are like some of our top ideas.
So, keeping this Deepa, based on last insight which you gave, how do you drive communities? Because it was an era of technology, and now it is shifting to era of communities. How can we create creative communities? What do you think? Other than education, what are we to do differently to create communities? Because if he or she does, and she's my peer, I do it too. So what do we do differently?
Yeah, I think so. I spent a lot of time actually thinking about online communities, even as I worked at YouTube and Google, right? And one of the challenges with how they are today, like these open for everybody, anyone on the internet, there's room for a lot of toxicity, right? And so online communities have also become kind of synonymous to, a lot of toxicity, unfortunately. So I think the way I think it would, I think I've seen a lot of other companies, doing this too, is like thinking about reimagining communities. And part of it is like starting with a trusted group. Like when you're starting with your own colleagues or, people in your company, it's already, the baseline is already pretty civil, right? You're already starting with a civil group. And then like really creating the sense of vulnerability and sense of, hey, I'm comfortable sharing. Yeah. I think it doesn't happen overnight. It happens over time. And then I think that's where creativity is also very well suited for it, because you may not be comfortable sharing your ukulele, video of you playing the very first class, but over 3 weeks, as you see other people share and other people make mistakes and still be okay with it, I think you get comfortable. So I think it's a process. It's like, it's like building friendships, right? Like it doesn't happen in one meeting. It happens over a period of time in repeated, interactions, right? And then you begin to form trust, and then you begin to express yourself. So I think it's really, I think when you think about community building, we really have to think about like human psychology and like what also research says about when people feel comfortable making friends and being, more open to sharing and expressing themselves. I think that's kind of how we are approaching it differently from, I'd say, other solutions out there, which may be more open and more designed for other purposes.
Yeah, this is a fantastic bang on answer. Very strategically thought out. Extremely useful for all people who are venturing out on creative journeys. So with that, Deepa, the last question, what's your one takeaway for audience? What is that one thing Deepa wants to tell everyone today?
Yeah, I would say definitely, like I mentioned, self-care is not selfish. So take care of yourselves. I think that's very important. And I think the other thing I would also mention is being an entrepreneur, right? I think one thing that we didn't touch upon in this interview, but something that I would also like to say is that diversity is really important, and even in like in offerings and startups that are emerging, and that's important because people bring very different experiences. Like in my case, as you mentioned, I'm a mom. I'm juggling so many things, and I've also been through PTSD. So I think those experiences help me, think of a solution and bring something to the world which is different and maybe not out there already. And that's why I think diversity in entrepreneurs and this startup ecosystem is really important. That's something I'd like to also, mention as we close this interview. And I think those are my top two, things that I would close the interview with, which is like, take care of yourselves and try creativity. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of like there's a lot of magic, and it's for everybody. And the second is like, yeah, let's make sure the startup ecosystem is more diverse. I think there needs to be definitely more people with different backgrounds coming in and creating something for the world.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Deepa, for your most valuable half hour. I learned so much. I'm sure the audience will too, especially your takeaway for the audience. Self-love, self-care is absolutely important, and diversity and inclusion are a must-have for every future organization. People like you are recreating startup ecosystems. I'm so proud to be, associated with you. And you're also tapping on the hottest trends, that is creativity and human potential. I wish you all the very best, and I hope to have you back soon on the podcast once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vida. Thanks for the interview.